Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Next to Madison. I'm your host, Madison Malloy. Just a quick reminder, please make sure if you haven't already subscribed, and also if you enjoy an episode, to please share it with your peers and family and friends so we can continue bringing you amazing information and podcasts. So on today's episode, I love this episode because I am like kind of somebody who tries to chase the fountain of youth, and I'm always looking for the best lasers, the best skincare, the best this. But today we have an anti-aging expert that is coming on the podcast that's really talking about the internal. When you fix the internal, the external is going to look better. So the problem is we're really kind of doing Band-Aid stuff, which is good, but we're not really getting to the root of the problem, which is causing the aging. So this is a very information-packed episode. You're going to want to take notes, re-listen, but we're talking a lot about aging, the brain, how you're only as old as your oldest part, growth hormones, the importance of balanced hormones. It is so packed with good information. I'm going to have to bring him back on just to talk about the growth hormone stuff. So it is an absolutely exciting educational interview. So this is a podcast to make you happier, healthier, and wealthier. And this specifically is focused on health. But if you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, you look good. And you need your health, which is the most important asset, especially to generate wealth. So we will be right back after this brief message with our guest on this episode of Next to Madison.
It's your host, Madison Malloy, and I have exciting news. My new product is now available on Amazon called Color Your Way to Abundance, a 21-day manifestation guide for wealth, health, and love. This unique coloring journal will help you manifest by coloring in the affirmations while you continue to repeat them. This will help activate these affirmations so they become a reality. Grab your copy today and relax, color, and start manifesting.
Episode of Next to Madison. With me, I have got Eric Braverman, MD. He is a youth expert, is what I like to call him, world-renowned doctor and also professor. Dr. Braverman, or Eric Braverman, MD, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be your guest, Mallory.
Well, thank you. And I think that this is such an important episode. It's for men and women, but I think with women, especially in our day and age, everybody's just chasing. We're in such a youth-driven culture. And there's a lot of pressure specifically on women to age effectively. So before we go into all the tips and tricks, I want you to just give us a short snapshot of your background and what makes you an expert in this field.
Do I call you Dr. Madison Mallory or Dr. Mallory, or what would you like to be?
It's Madison Malloy. So yes, but no, I'm not a doctor.
I'm embarrassed. Okay, well, that actually is a brain tip, is that if we pay attention to too many details, we can lose the big picture. So it happens in the anti-aging field. Someone spends time on taking care of their upper lips and this, and they go and they get, breast lift and everything else, and they get a bone density and they break their hip. So the first principle of anti-aging is you got to know that you're only as young as your oldest part. So you can be young, beautiful at 40 and get cancer or the breast or pancreas or colon, and then you die. So everyone needs to memorize you're only as young as your oldest part. Now I'm going to answer your question. I really was kind of a whiz kid. I used to memorize 20 numbers in math backward and forward, and I would have photographic memory, although I didn't necessarily listen well. And my mother would say article after article. So I went to med school at NYU. I graduated summa cum laude from Brandeis up in Boston, in Watertown. First Resolve for Independence was written by a doctor, Dr. Joseph Warren. And I had to find a place in medicine. I was at Mass General. I was at Yale Internal Medicine. I graduated with honors from NYU. Wow. But because my mom kept sending me all these articles on sugar is bad, she says the medical profession is ignoring all the things that are terrible for you in an unhealthy environment. I built a field of anti-aging medicine, and other doctors did it as well. We created an anti-aging board. While I was doing that, I wrote 20 books, over the last 40 years. I wrote 150 science papers. I was professor at Keck School of Medicine. I was professor at University of Florida. I had an appointment at NYU. There were small appointments, but I did get to teach and I get to train students. So the first principle of aging is you're only as young as your oldest part. So imagine you go to an event, Madison, and you forget one earring or you forget one shoe, like Cinderella. You can't. It's not a very good outfit, right? If you could have the greatest dress in history, and you go down a pageant runway, and you're missing a shoe, you fall off and trip, and the rug rolls up right to the judges. So you have to have every part of your body checked. So that's a problem for most people because we're spending time at 40 and we're going to and 30 even. And women start to age really, men and women are aging at 22 on.
Yeah.
And they go get their teeth done and they work on their gums and they get their eye prescription, but they really need a bone density because women are getting short immediately at 22. They're already losing height from bone density and they're losing muscle. By 30, the average American thin, attractive woman has got what we call sarcopenia, one of the things linked to cancer. And the sarcopenia is the loss of muscle tone. And that's a big problem. Now, that one's, at least you can measure cheaply. You can get an Omron scale, which measures percent body fat. I mean, it's not perfectly accurate if you check it, but you get your percentage fat, your biological age, your percentage muscle, your visceral fat, because the visceral fat, like we see almost all men from 50 on have big bellies, or belly, too much belly fat. They call it beer belly. They can call it whatever. But the hormones can get rid of that belly. But you have to repair. I don't know why it's so hard to understand. I mean, there are a lot of homeowners in America, probably 100 million plus. Everyone knows they got to, replace the gutters on an average 10 to 15 years. They got to replace the roof. But maybe because they rotate their homes so often that their insurance changes every 4 years, the homes change. They don't really learn maintenance. And then everybody dies in the hospital at expense of $100,000. They don't really no one understands death. I can't figure it all out, but all I know is I'm going to teach you how to stay young forever. So you start in the brain up here. First thing is you run how much energy you have, and you have to chart it. How much energy am I losing compared to before? How quick can I be? So, for example, our cognitive span. If I test myself, the other day I could do 15 numbers of pi backwards and forward, but I cannot do 20 numbers, which is what I did at 10 years old or 8 years old. So my brain span is losing something. It doesn't matter where you start. You have to know. You have to know where you start and how much decline you get. So everyone gets some decline, which can be good if it's in the right areas. Next is you got to be stable. Stability is central to resilience, everything. So each of these has a chemical name. It's in my book, Edge Effect. It's dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin. Everyone knows these things indirectly. Serotonin means serenity tone. That's what Prozac and Paxil and Lexapro are given out like candy. Everyone knows about Xanax. That's GABA. But there are natural things, acetylcholine. Everyone knows about it from, eggs and fish oil. They're always advertised. They make you smarter, and everyone knows about dopamine. It's called sugar and caffeine. I mean, there's not a person in America that's not using some sugar and caffeine to raise dopamine. That's the balanced brain advantage, but that is not taught. Our children have a vaccine business. They have an over-specialization in our society where everybody's like a right pinky doctor, a left pinky doctor, a right eyelid doctor, a left eyelid doctor. I mean, who would imagine if you had to go for Botox and you had a left-sided Botox physician and a right-sided Botox? We laugh, but that is the way medicine is segregated. You can't get the whole in anybody. I mean, that's why people go to coaches that deal with your whole life. So then you work your way down. You have to have, obviously we have to go to the eye doctors and we go to the hearing doctors and we go to the dentist, and you work your way down to the thyroid. Thyroid has nodules all over America. There's no way to pick them up except by ultrasound. So we have another problem. The Air Force can't function without radar. Where is my Air Force radar physical exam? There is no I grew up on Marine tests where I used to do an L on the ropes and I had to do 200 push-ups in 2 minutes. I had to do 200 abs in 2 minutes. We have no standardized radar physical with ultrasound, MRI, CAT scans, and other things. So people are aging and dying all over the place, hidden pancreatic cancer, hidden splenic problems, hidden liver problems, hidden thyroid nodules, and they don't get treated. So that's why we get old, is because the early portion of disease is not checked. You're only as young as your oldest part. Your brain controls your body as God controls the earth, and you're only as young as your oldest part. So you can go to your get a great colonoscopy, which is where everyone's pushing, and then all of a sudden you break your hip and you're in the hospital. You have a hidden cancer and you're dying of metastatic disease. All right. So I talked a little bit too long for an intro. Get you started. You're only as young as your oldest part, and your brain's your most important organ.
I love it. Okay, so what's after the brain as a second most important thing to staying young?
Probably what men and women know best, which is the furthest terminal of the computer. So, for example, we call it borders today in politics. In other words, border in Mexico is falling in, so people say the country's going to die. Whenever you lose you go to the border, the end. So the end point of the brain is you have to think of the brain as like a master server, like Google, and then your ovary and testicles are the furthest point down. That doesn't mean other organs are not important, your lung, your heart. Obviously your heart's, you're dead if you don't have a heart, but you still, considering in terms of daily well-being, the hormones are the key. The heart is, as long as the heart's good. So the heart is considered the second most important organ because it's between life and death. But in terms of well-being at 40, aging, women lose hair from 22 on. All right. And by 40, there's 8 stages of menopause. And women go through them at 22, 24, 25, 28, 30, and they can follow it with their FSH and LH. But I can't convince gynecologists to do it. There are world famous doctors who've written up the 8 stages of menopause by following FSH hormone. And they do it when they go for fertility treatment. Everyone knows that you get an LH surge on the 3rd day. And if they want to get pregnant, and when they're 35, they have trouble getting pregnant. The reality is that you can follow your stages of menopause. And despite what people say that you should, the reality of biology is the best age to start having babies is 22, right? Because what happens is your hormones go and you get a boost of hormones when you start having babies. Now, your FSH and LH, and there's no fixed advice. It could be better for 30, for another person, whatever, 40 even. But most people can't get pregnant after 40 years old on their first try. They have to use IVF. Mm-hmm. The estrogen is a woman's dopamine. So they have filled with energy. They're filled with fire when their estrogen's up. And you can get that even at 30, you can take an estrogen cream. Progesterone is the first sign of perimenopause is most people get anxious and they can't sleep. And the progesterone is key. And there are attempts to raise it, but almost no measurement of the blood. In other words, it's not precise how they measure the blood. Then testosterone is underrated in women. Without testosterone, women have very low sex drive, all right, which becomes then a relationship problem and becomes a life problem. Men, on the other hand, they start losing testosterone usually at 45, and they drink when they lose testosterone. Women pay for more surgeries, plastic surgeries that don't make them feel that good. They do lip fillers and everything because without the testosterone and the growth hormone, their collagen diminishes. So their face and hands look older and older and older. So the growth hormone has been approved for many different usages, such as children's height. It was approved for HIV-induced dystrophy in the face. So the HIV, which is a virus, would destroy the muscle tone of face. The more you keep muscle, the woman's face looks more muscle. And another alternative is to get fat. I mean, when you get fat, your face looks fuller, but it's not healthy. So that's another dimension. So to stay young, women will have to have very carefully measured estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And that's the Air Force radar. I call it the Air Force radar physical, but I call it, It's not yet called that. It's a radar physical exam with ultrasound, MRI, et cetera, and PET scans. You can find cancer
Wow.
very early. So sorry if I'm talking too fast.
No,
I
it's such great information.
But you understand they're not doing enough. Think of how beautiful you are right now. But you've made sure hair is gone from the eyes. You've made sure your lips have the right amount of color. You made sure your hair has got the right flare to it. You made sure your eyes stand out. You put on the mascara and it's got everything standing out beautifully. Let's flip you inside out. And now your organs are on the outside. How do we keep them young?
Yeah.
Your taste buds need zinc and your smell needs choline so that your smell is healthier. Then your hearing is not as big a problem with women, but vision can be a problem. Your macular degeneration and cataract because you're in the sun a lot, sunglasses, vitamin B2, certain nutrients that you can take. Multivitamins are generally debunked, but I don't agree with that. And then it's your diet, right? And then you keep turning yourself inside out. You go to the thyroid, it almost always has nodules. And
Yeah.
you go to the breast, it always has lumps and bumps. And everyone's doing the mammograms, which are like, oh my God. I mean, women just can't even believe how painful mammograms are. And go to other countries, you get different opinions. You go to Stockholm, you only get an ultrasound, no mammogram. They give only ultrasound.
Yeah.
So I have too much information in my head, but the bottom line is we need a better physical exam that's anti-aging oriented. And if you're not doing a lot of repair at 30 years old, 25 even, you're missing out because the hair texture can be improved when you're 25 because everyone gets perms and they get color and they don't use something called N-acetylcysteine. I mean, I'm thinking my hair is crazy thick at 66 years old. Crazy. Because but I don't on my regimen, but I know how to thicken hair, but it takes time. I've been doing the regimen of anti-aging for myself. I mean, my mother impacted me, my father impacted me, my mother in particular gave me the articles. I've been on an anti-aging program for 50 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so let's focus on the hormones.
Yeah.
Where should somebody go to get the most accurate hormone level? My personal opinion, as somebody who's had this done, is not a doctor that takes insurance because you're going to be restricted. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know the whole field, but as a general rule, the endocrinologists have been hard to get them to cooperate. And because of the expense, crushing insurance pressures on expense and the utilization of administrative agencies to hurt the doctor. The people that you pay for frequently do not have precision. It would be like comparing, countries buy militias. They buy privatized armies. They do not have the discipline of the United States military. All right. And they lack certain things. So without going into the details of what the conventional alternative doctors lack, they generally do not do any ultrasound. They generally don't do any tests. They generally under-test the woman's ovary. They don't do FSH and LH like a reproductive gynecologist. Let's say at 40 years old, you want to have your first baby. Everyone knows that the workups, FSH, LH, free and total testosterone, it's very precise. In other words, you can't just measure testosterone. You have to measure the free and the total. Then, you see like older women, they get balding spots on top. No one measures sex hormone binding globulin. It's very difficult. And then when I did it all, it became a $10,000 checkup. And I did it and convinced people to do it. And they were generally happy. But then you're right. Conventional insurance companies complain because they don't want to foot the bill for blood. So then what they do is they make you go to an endocrinologist. They say not covered if it's not from an endocrinologist. Then you take your breast to the breast doctor. Then you take your ovary to the endocrinologist. Then you take your pancreas is where the growth hormone. And that the pancreatic doctors won't do the growth hormone and they won't do the ultrasounds unless you have pain. And then you're going to sit there undiagnosed for 2 years. And then everybody's excited to sell you GLP-1 drugs, like Ozempic that are a hot seller, but nobody's paying attention to the whole. So it's the same game over and over again. You fix your weight, you get heart disease. You fix your heart, you get lung disease. You fix your lung, you get eye disease. There's no one-stop shop. I mean, the whole thing is based on a Ford assembly line, but human beings are made in the Holy Spirit. And once that medicine, in fact, there was a $7 billion industry from Wyeth selling women Premarin, horse urine, estrogen. It was made from the mares. So it was called Premarin because it was mare urine. And it was very high in side effects. And every doctor told me I was wrong, that Premarin was great. Then they made phony progesterone called Pravera. And they must have made billions of dollars. And they probably owe the American woman damages. But without Teddy Roosevelt pushing them around, they won't do anything. And what they need to do is recognize that was a disaster. And I used to say to doctors, this is how I would hit them over the head. I'd say, so you're telling me a woman can take a horse hormones, right? And that's her replacement instead of biological estrogen, progesterone, testosterone? They said, yes. How do you think she'll do with a horse skin transplant on her face? If let's say she's got a burn over here and she needs new skin. Everyone takes the flap from another part of your body. No one would give you a skin transplant from a horse or a dog.
No.
This went on for years. And there are no damages. There's nothing being done. The children can't read. There's nothing being done about the pediatric practice where it's all vaccines. I mean, you get 25 or 35 vaccines in some pediatricians' offices with no mental health care. No coverage for a brain checkup, a personality profile, a character. I mean, we're 50 plus years past Martin Luther King's content of our character, and every kid in America could have had a character test. There's beautiful ones done from Ben Franklin's followers, so to speak, named Dr. Seligman on positive psychology. The whole country needs a total transformation, reformation. And in my generation, I had the Marine test. They taught, because they called it a Marine test, because I watched Iwo Jima on television, I learned to have a 1 hour exercise regimen. I mean, I just push like a dog. And if I have a bad day, you can see me watching a TV show and doing my presses at the end of the day. You have to try to get an hour a day in, and it's called logistics, tactics, strategy. So, for example, in my house, every room has an exercise regimen. Okay. There's dump in every room. There's stretch things. Yeah. You got to make it idiot proof. And your diet, we didn't even get the diet. I mean, it's fish until you have gills, vegetables till you turn into a plant, fruits until you're considered fruity, and no white flour, no white sugar, no white bread, and God doesn't always dwell in the White House. I mean, it's endless discipline, because as soon as you give in and start eating your first sugar, most people keep eating sugar.
Yeah, it's very addicting. It's extremely addicting. Okay.
And the whole government's selling us addictive, destructive foods.
Of course.
And the Constitution says general welfare of the United States is the primary purpose of government. Primary purpose of government is to ensure tranquility, to provide for the common defense, establish justice, and take care of the general welfare of the people so that you have blessings upon blessings for your posterity, your children, your family, your loved ones. You got a country that's 60% crazy from depression, anxiety, upset, and problems in relationships where everybody's vulturing them and eating their body as they go, whether it's divorce lawyers or lawyers in general. Then it gets worse. I mean, we have a country that is not going to succeed in passing it on to our posterity. And when I grew up, I don't know, the same generation you are, it's Make America Glorious. I mean, glorious, what a glorious country we were part of.
Absolutely.
Now we have 60% obese. The children are obese. The children are using.
I know. Because it's just like the food. Like, I was in Europe and like the food was so clean, you didn't gain weight. And it's like, why can't we have those same restrictions that Europe has in our foods?
Beautiful.
There's multiple theories about that. Okay, so let's hone in on, because it is a craze right now and everybody's jumping on this bandwagon, GLP-1s.
Oh, I love them. Somebody had, one of my co-authors insisted I sign on to a paper saying they could cause some depression and side effects. I didn't mind saying that because you should be aware of potential side effects. But it is good correction. of abdominal obesity. I've been using it for years with patients, and they lose 5 or 10 pounds, but it's not enough by itself. You have to stimulate the brain's dopamine. It doesn't cut craving enough in the brain. It doesn't raise the chemical dopamine, which is the estrogen and testosterone and the amino and protein. So it's not enough by itself. The majority of Americans don't even have an idea of how, even when they're skinny obese.
Yeah, it's like skinny fat. Okay, well,
Right.
that's good to know. Okay, so that's kind of something that's there. And then I want to talk about,
I,
because I see this all the time.
they're very used.
Yeah. So what do you think about NAD supplements? Because that's a big thing that's going around right
Been
now
around
too.
for almost 50 years, and they've never done much for me or my patients. I see IV NAD and this and that. There's the first thing is the United States has gone as a country without radar and satellites. Nobody knows their oldest part. So let's pretend you're scanned because you're light skinned and eye issues. You're going, whatever. You're going to have risks for height loss, curved spine, muscle tone issues, moisture in the skin. Skin gets dry. There are some parts that can break. One person dies of a pancreas problem, another one dies of a breast problem, another one loses all their energy from thyroid. You got to fix the physical problem in America. You have to have a new physical exam that's done by computers. It's really an embarrassment because every field that everyone's in, whether it's television, radio, pageants, beauty, when like put your face in front of a computer and they show you what your face can turn into. When you go to get your lung done, it's got a CAT scan. When you go to get your lung done, you get a pulmonary, you breathe into a tube. When you get your heart done, you get an echo, a cardiogram, and your CT angiogram, and then you go to the next level. Your belly doctor, liver does he basically shoves Galileo's telescope down your throat, Galileo's telescope up your butt. I mean, your telescope from every direction. They call them endoscopy, colonoscopy, duodenoscopy, gastroduodenoscopy, esophagoscopy. I mean, you're being looked at, but they're all doing pinkies. Pinky. It's like a pinky doctor. Nobody's doing it. There's no generals. In fact, one general said to me, "We're not like you doctors. We don't let plumbers like urologists or neurosurgeons run our hospitals and our game. Our glory in the United States is to create generals, whether it's General Eisenhower's first thing he taught me was unified command. This is the most disunified medical system in the history."
Oh,
And
it's
the
awful.
it's awful. Joseph Warren, he was able to write political letters. He was able to do the surgery on John Quincy Adams and fix his pinky. He was able to take care of smallpox, infectious disease. Josiah Bartlett from New Hampshire, another one. He had health protocols, wellness. He could be a surgeon. The Army, Benjamin Rush was writing on the Bible. He was writing in psychiatry. He was also a surgeon general. Dr. Mercer, killed at Princeton, was the surgeon, best friend of Washington, writing on military matters. These were the age of American polymaths. They did everything. And we now turned every doctor into a pinky guy. I actually hurt my finger the other day, and I looked up pinky doctors. In basketball, someone hit me here and dislocated my fingers. And I looked up pinky doctors, and the guy said, "I only do left pinkies, not right pinkies." All right, we got a disaster. We got an eye doctor here, a butt doctor here, a GI pancreatic doctor, cancer doctor here. Nobody can negotiate their health in a system like this.
Yeah. So I want to turn it now on you and what you offer. So you're an anti-aging doctor. When somebody comes to you or someone similar to you, what tests are you doing that these other people are not, that can really get to the root cause of aging, which is the internal organs, it sounds like?
Well, the first thing, the brain is still the main root. Okay. Because the four corners, so I do a brain checkup right away, a mind checkup, because certain personalities are prone to problems and certain types and temperament. So, for example, the introvert is prone to not enough interpersonal connection, but the extrovert is prone to being a scatterbrain and needing more stimulation and never getting down to taking care of themselves. The person will see the big picture, and the practical person will just take care of the checkbook and the balances, and they'll have money, but they won't have any health. And they tend to have a paucity of imagination, and then they have trouble finding meaning in life. So there are a lot of, Mark Twain said, our virtues are our vice are your virtue. I mean, I'm capable of absorbing massive amount of information, but I today haven't really accepted your guidance that much for focusing it to what your audience would like. So that would be my upside, my downside. Introvert wants to read about their health with slides on the pancreas, slides on the lungs. But an extrovert wants to talk to the doctor for 20 minutes and say nothing sometimes. In other words, sometimes they talk, but they never really got anything out of it. But they want to chat. And and doctors don't chat very well as a rule. PAs chat. So my strategy in my practice was get the PA. So you want to do your mind first, because if you can get into a person's head, you can leverage them to do the right thing for themselves. So healthcare is all about caring enough to study the person to persuade them to do what's right. I'm capable of selling ice cubes in Alaska. I go igloo to igloo and I could sell ice cubes, but they don't need ice cubes. They got ice everywhere. So the issue is people need a brain checkup and they need a body checkup. So I have an ultrasound physical. I have a pattern of brain health where I measure the health brain with a beam or some other thing. It's similar to Dr. Amen, but I really want to know a person's personality, sleep pattern, energy pattern, and total health of their mind and character to really help them out. So
yes. No, I love that. So most people, I think, sometimes just, will think like, oh, as long as I look good on the outside. But so in your opinion, because everybody's chasing the fountain of youth, they're going to get fillers, they're going to get lasers, they're going to get all these different things. They're wearing LED or red light therapy mask at night, eye creams, butt
having money, education gets you only 7 years of life, and they're all fooling themselves. They have not had a measurement.
Okay, right? So my question is, how does one help eliminate the aging in the skin, like the lines under the eyes or the lines on the face and the sagging?
Skin is always a reflection of the internal body in one way or another. And the hormones are certainly the ones that have the most health. I'll give you an example. Every woman tends to know if they take the birth control pill, they will end up with a sexier face, with thicker hair, and their skin will be moister. But the end result of the birth control is damage to sex hormone binding globulin and making women labile, moody, and less likely probably to stay in marriage. So therefore, the birth control pill has proven itself to be a psychiatric feeder. All right. So, but it does with the higher estrogen and cause trouble. Now, my mother's generation, everyone read the book Feminine Forever. That was the hot book. And I worked with Susan Summers, who was in the Feminine Forever business. She still died at 77. I think we can get a lifespan of 100, 120. I think we should be able to get even 180. The issue is to spread out the aging at a slower pace and to repair the DNA and the hormones. So I'd say that the most neglected part of aging is the growth hormone injections. The second most would be the lack of use of estrogen, that women need it supplemented as early as 30, vaginally and elsewhere. The next most common could be because of sleep issues. And the next most common is testosterone because of sex issues. But that's variable. I mean, there are women that have too much testosterone, have hair loss, and they get chin hair. There's women who have too much estrogen, and they get to the point where they're flighty, where they don't have the personal discipline, and that they're flighty in relationships. They're flighty in terms of learning. They can't read. In other words, they can't sustain an hour of private reading, or they can't sustain any deep reading. So it's variable, and it depends on what your baseline. I'll tell you what's another thing that's wrong with our system. That's almost unbearable is that we don't have baseline tests on women when they hit puberty. So if women, I want to measure how much cognitive loss you have, I need to know the same memory test is done on you every few years. So I remember that Obama said we're going to solve the medical record problem so that whenever you go to a doctor, you'll have record. They didn't solve anything because they never got one system from the National Institute of Health, CDC, and the major hospitals and doctors to come up with a brain health chart note. They never agreed the brain's the most important organ. In fact, they're going to look back at us in 1,000 years and say those people tested their anus more than they tested their brain.
Yeah.
And they're going to call us a something funny. But the bottom line, I have a note that will standardize the United States healthcare system. This was done in 1913, by the way, by Abraham Flexner. The place that built the bomb and gave the United States the World War II advantage was run by a fellow named Abraham Flexner in Princeton, which is my hometown. And he came up with the routine physical that everyone got. But there's only one problem. It turned out to be completely inadequate in the computer age. Every doctor in New York has a computer for something, but he doesn't have a computer for the whole picture. So it's back to who has the whole picture. I mean, I thought about it with Harry. The Air Force has the whole picture. They're the ones with the satellites and the radar, aerospace. Yep. Where did as the heavens are control the earth, the brain controls the body. So the brain checkup has to be added immediately. I mean, the United children are in a crisis. Then you get to
God, yeah. So let's go to
beauty. Just follow this one line though. If you focus on internal beauty, internal tranquility. Remember the first phrase of the Constitution: ensure domestic tranquility. Ensure tranquility. As soon as you get into a calm mind and you get into the possibilities of all these other mental health problems, and you solve the drug problem, and you solve the problems of crime, violence, memory loss, cognitive problems, then you get to beauty with all the hormones. And you can do an ultrasound physical followed by, if people can afford it, I would say the ultrasound physical should be covered for everyone in the United States if it's possible. I mean, who knows what our economy will be able to handle. But you need to give everyone, these are your 5 worst parts. In other words, don't go to your eye doctor this year. Go, if you have the oldest part, you're really likely to break your hip. You have no muscle tone, your face is going to sag without muscle tone, and you'll get a high rate of cancer. So you have to change your diet there. Your next oldest part is your heart valve. Your mitral valve has a little floppiness to it, and that's your next oldest part. And your next one is you have diverticuli in your colon. And if you don't start eating the Metamucil and the fiber with your yogurt every day, you're going to have hemorrhoids upon hemorrhoids and colon cancer or colon disease later. There's none of that going on. In other words, if you go get a diagnosis of diverticuli or colon disease or hemorrhoids, the GI, that's not going to be in your psychiatrist's plan. He's not going to be part of the leveraging plan. In other words, the shrinks of America and the GPs are supposed to convince you to take better care of yourself so that we raise the Medicare age from 65 to 80 and the country doesn't go bankrupt with already 31 trillion in debt. There's a way to do that. Everybody, you can go start your next career at 65 instead of retire.
I love it. Okay, so let's zero in on, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating, but everyone wants to look younger. So you're telling me if you want younger skin, it's not the Botox and the fillers and the lasers. It's really zeroing in on the hormones.
I'm saying that the Botox and laser are limited, meaning that the majority of women, when they hit 40, you can, a trained physician like myself sees that they got their collagen injected into the jowls, and then it gets a little modelly looking. Their lips you can see the women, their lips have turned outward and are puffier and look inappropriate. So a lot of people, as they try to fix their face to look like it did a decade ago, look weird. All right. They look weird. I mean, it's obvious. Even famous people in the United States have done it, and their faces don't look good. So what did they do wrong? They didn't get into the habit of the number one cancer measurement, which is to measure their muscle mass. So the loss of muscle we're all gift wrapped in muscle and collagen. All right. So losing muscle and collagen, which is what young people have at 20, is happening fast, and it's happening faster in women. Women have a 20 to 50-year cycle. Men have a 20 to 75-year cycle, or 70 in some cases, 65 in some cases, 80 in other cases. They have their testicles last longer than ovaries. Do you know why? No one probably you wouldn't even think of it. So women and men age differently for one core reason among many, that the ovary is 4 degrees hotter than the testicles, because the testicles are hanging outside to be cooled. So men are having babies. I mean, I remember the neurosurgeon, and he wasn't even on any hormones that trained me. I mean, he had children in 81. I mean, whatever, maybe he lived to 90, but if he knew what he was doing, he didn't even know about the hormones yet. But the bottom line is that was no problem for him to have more kids at 81. And the reality is women can't have kids really successfully past 40, because the ovary is doing much more work. Bodies do a lot of work for babies. All right. You can go to IVF at between 40 and 46. I don't think anyone's got past 46 with your own eggs. So that tells you what? That a woman's ovary is aging faster than test. And it's all because of cooling. In fact, that's why you see places called cryotherapy. And what's the first thing you do when you get inflammation? Let's say you get someone hits you hard, Charlie horse, ice. And where do people go when they want to get away from all the infectious diseases of the tropics? They go to places that freeze and kill everything. Deep freeze kills everything. That's bad, except for humans, as long as they have the heating machine.
Wow. Okay, so how do women continue to look good and slow down the aging process?
Their LH, their TSH, their T4, their sex hormone binding globulin. At least 2 or 3 hormones have to be measured in growth hormone. Everybody wants to keep, their blood tests down low. I don't know why they cost so much. They should cost a penny. But IGF-1, IGF-GPE3, there's at least 4 growth hormones you could measure when your muscle mass is dropping. I don't see why.
How do you increase growth hormone?
You have to take it.
And taking it meaning in a supplement, in a shot? How do people get it?
You take a shot that becomes a 1-second drill or 5-second drill every night. There have been attempts to raise the growth hormone elsewhere, like protein powders, intravenous drips. I don't think they're well proven. There's no endocrinologist that I know, a board certified endocrinologist, that believes in it. But most endocrinologists don't even believe in what the textbook says, which is there are 30 forms of measuring growth hormone. I don't understand. Google algorithms haven't taken on this story. I mean, it's all about one verse in the Bible I like, which is John 10:10, that we should have more abundant life. The abundant life in America has deteriorated greatly. And part of the reason is we have a psychogenic society right now, which is a lot of toxic hatred between left wing and right wing. The old joke used to be a group of doctors on an airplane. They can't get along, and the pilots get sick with Ebola, and the cockpit is quarantined. So the Republican doctors go out and they cut off the left wing of the plane, and the Democratic doctors cut off the right wing. And the gynecologists remove the luggage, which is what they always do. They take out your uterus. You can't fly an airplane without teamwork, all right, in terms of that situation. The medical system has no teamwork. The Army has teamwork. The Air Force has teamwork. The Navy has teamwork.
No, and I completely understand that, but I want to know for myself and everyone else, how do I affordably get my hands on growth hormones to stay younger longer?
Right now, there's places like compounding pharmacies that literally have the growth hormone price down from what used to be $50,000 a year to $2,400 a year. So almost everybody in the Hamptons can afford $2,400. It's called Omnitrope and Somatotrope, and the pharmacy is University Compounding Pharmacy. And
what is it called? University what?
compounding pharmacy, and it's in San Diego, where the naval
Compounding
base.
pharmacy. So you
Right,
get this test and then you can go and get, and they are injections you give yourself?
right. But you have to get the test, but there's tons of anti-aging doctors around the city that do it.
Yeah.
The most this one was always in the New York Times. I don't know what happened to him, but there was Cenogenics. There was Dr. Kamate, who graduated from Yale. There was Cenogenics that used to have ads all the time of old men becoming young. They didn't. I don't know why they didn't show women, but generally didn't.
So you're telling me that having growth hormone is more effective than all the other band-aids that are out there, like the Botox, the fillers, the
Overall appearance,
lasers. Yeah.
in terms of overall long-term appearance. In other words, most people don't think long-term. Most
No, they want
countries
instant.
think right. The glory of the United States has been and is in many ways that intelligent people think in terms of 50-year plans. All right. And hopefully parts of our government do have 50-year plans. When you talk
Yeah.
about running for offices, most people are talking about what am I going to do for you tomorrow to make your life better. That isn't how it works as a parent. When you love your kids, you come up with plans for 5 and 10 and 15 years. So a plan for beauty is one, you got to keep the same doctor and build a rapport if they're good. You have to keep, because the average person changes their doctor in the United States every 4 years. So there's no continuity of care. Secondly, all the attempts to make records have failed. All the attempts to duplicate the founding of the United States, which was like a glorious miracle beyond belief, have failed, meaning no one's doing the medicine of Bartlett, Warren, Rush. And there's many more. I can't think. It's Lyman Hall. There's other doctors of that founding generation, and they all were generalists. The whole board specialization has destroyed American medicine and created no continuity of care. And the pediatrician may see kids from 0 to 26, but what does he know about their mental health? I mean, I have an advantage. I play basketball with them, and I asked them, on Martin Luther King Day, can you give me any quotes? What do you know about math? What do you know about science? What do you know about health? Why are you eating nothing but sugar, junk food, and soda pop? I mean, you have to tax the stuff, and you have to convince the corporations to make America glorious. I mean, we don't have a glory.
Trust me, I
right.
know.
We have a miserable country right now of unhappiness.
And there's many theories on that. We don't have time to cover it on this podcast.
But the beauty is growth hormone. They're not that expensive. I think I need to train. Maybe I need to go into the business of taking endocrinologists that are articulate.
I like that.
I created the quizzes. I created it all where I was going to train a whole new generation of physicians. Another alternative, be politically powerful enough to grab all the deans of the medical school and tell them this is what's missing. I don't know. I mean, I think about it continuously, and I've done so for many, many years. But in your case, I told you the typical workup of a 40-year-old woman should be to have her memory and attention done. The number one cause of car accidents, and airplane pilots are always crashing. The doctors are always crashing their small jets and their small planes, is you have to know your attention span. You have to know your memory. Your cognitive ability has to be retested. Your reflexes have to be measured, and your physical fitness and muscle mass and body fat done. We have computers to do everything in 2 hours.
I know.
It does it.
So, okay. So where can people find you, follow you, get more information, come to see you, all that stuff? Because we could talk about this for the next 8 weeks straight and not stop. There is so much information. So we're definitely going to have you back on. So where can people find you?
I'll give you why don't I just give them my number? I don't think you're going to have a Russian call.
If you have a website, an email where they can come and get these tests from you.
It must be a target because someone took my website down, knocked it down, and I haven't bothered to put it back up. But I'll give you my number, email, or why don't I just email is Path Medical. It's simple. The new path. You want to go from one place with your health to the next place. pathmedical@gmail. All right. And then if do you have a number that you give to reach you or no?
Absolutely
then
not.
Look, I screen my calls. They're not going to get me. 347-266 9361.
Repeat that again.
347-266-9361.
Perfect. Okay. So check him out, you guys. Obviously, he's going to have a new website up, but if you want to learn more, email him at pathmedical@gmail.com, or you can call the number and follow. What is your Instagram, your social handles?
Eric Braverman, MD. But my best place to know me is to read my books.
Yes. So tell us about those books, and then we gotta wrap it up.
Younger You, Younger Sexier You, Younger Thinner You, Edge Effect, How to Get Your Edge. Let me think. What else? I mean, a whole
Are
host.
all your books on Amazon?
What's that?
Are all the books available on Amazon?
20 books listed on Amazon and 150 papers on PubMed. And just
Perfect.
for fun, let me give you 14 digits of pi. 3.14126. 5926-535-8979 or 97.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. All right. But the
Okay.
bottom line,
So go, you guys check him out.
memory is fantastic.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And we'll have you back on because there's so much stuff to uncover here. So it's amazing. Go check him out. Find his books on Amazon. Everything will be linked there. And here's to living younger, living healthier, living happier. Remember when he said the brain is the most important. So are your thoughts and everything else in your mindset.
You're only as young as your oldest part.
You're only as old as your youngest part. Okay. Eric Braverman, MD, Dr. Braverman, thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us.
Only as young as the oldest part. So
Perfect.
don't put money and time into your face.
Okay. I like it. I like it. All right, you guys. Thank you, Dr. Braverman, and thank you to everyone who's listening. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.